All right, hi everyone. My name is Joseph Dowdy, and today I will be demonstrating a UiPath project which was done for Accounting 675 at San Diego State University. The purpose of this project is to automate what an associate would be doing at a public accounting firm in terms of updating a prior year work paper to a current year work paper. So before I go into explaining the whole main state machine here on the screen, let me go ahead and pull up what a work paper is or what one might look like. So this is just a pretty simple work paper that was created. It's testing the password policies on a particular application known as Heroku for this fictitious company A. And you can see there's a lot of dates in here, like 2022. There's some annotations here, which is done by internal audit that talks about, who wrote the policy, what their title is, what date, and then some specifics on the policy itself. And then also here's like the actual configuration, what it might look like. And again, has some dates, has a criteria, things like that. And today we will be looking at finding a way to automate the creation of this workflow, of this work paper for 2023. So notice everything here is set for 2022. In doing so, and a lot of times in industry, this is what the interns or first year associates will be doing. And a lot of times they're looking at uh, things provided from control owners, like maybe the new company password policy or the updated one for 2023, like such. And also they're going to need the current dated password configuration. So we'll be implementing those things like that, and then maybe some instructions on other things that might have changed during the year, such as control owner changes or new titles, things like that. So this workflow, in essence, at a very high level, takes the information from the work paper, last year's work paper. It OCR scans any current year images that need to be implemented into the new 2023 workflow or work paper. And then also it highlights any changes like control owners or name changes, title changes, things like that. And you'll see it uses the most up-to-date GPT-4 to create this workflow, or to create the 2023 work paper. So starting at this init section, the workflow in order to run OCR needs to have the images scanned from the prior year work paper. It needs to have those scanned images saved locally, as well as a PDF too. So essentially this init function is just clearing those temporary folders. So if we look over here in our project directory, we have an images folder and a PDF folder. These are these are basically temporary folders that hold sub-process images or PDFs that are saved, and they need to be cleared out before every run. So that's what this init function is doing here at the very beginning. There's two paths. If there's a failure within the init, basically the final state's going to go to immediately, which just terminates the entire workflow. If it's successful in clearing those folders, then we go to this next state, which is the retrieve data state, where basically the brunt of everything is getting done here. In this state, essentially the prior year work paper, the Excel file is getting OCR scanned, and the images are getting extracted and saved separately. That way it can be fed correctly in a format that the GPT algorithm can use to create and recognize the difference between an image and text. In this, and then also we do the same thing for the current year images and or instructions, if any. Similar to the initialization, if there's a failure, we get a retrieve error, which pushes us to the final state and ends the workflow. And if not, then we go to the generate GPT response. Now, we had originally envisioned using Python here and an API call to the GPT-4 OpenAI playground. However, the current edition of UiPath doesn't support Python functionality despite having an official updated Python activities package, which is very frustrating. The best response I could find on the UiPath forums was to downgrade to Python version 3.6 and then also ensure to implement your project in the Windows legacy settings. However, to do that for this project would require rewriting the bulk of the workflow in this retrieved data because a lot of the activities we used, like the OCR and the PDFs image extraction would not be supported under the Windows legacy and an older version of UiPath. So as a temporary workaround, and we'll see this later in the demo, basically a web scraping script is ran, which UiPath does a pretty good job at, but if this were to be launched in actual production, this would not be a viable long-term solution. All right. And you'll see again, so this GPT response is going to get fed formatted text from the OCR scans on all of our documents. And the output is going to be a comma separated value styled response from GPT. The only difference between a true CSV and what it gives us is we use the tittles to separate the values, just because our responses, our annotations on a workpaper oftentimes have commas, so it wouldn't make sense to use a comma separated. But yeah, there's definitely room for improvement there. Similar to the last two, if there's an error, then we just end the workflow, and if not, then we continue on to this create Excel doc. Now the create Excel doc has two primary functions. The first one is going to be iterating through our GPT response to actually physically create the Excel doc. The second function, which again I think has a lot of room for improvement, is the actual formation and formatting of the items on the Excel doc. So I've done a couple things to make it cleaner and prettier and more presentable, like a first year associate would do, but I think there's still a lot of room to improve the actual formatting of the Excel doc that we create. Okay, cool. So just to show you guys, highlighting here, in our workflow, we have our example workpaper. This has things like our last year workpaper, some new images for 2023 that we need to incorporate, and then also some notes just to incorporate too in our 2023 document. This images folder is just a temporary folder, like I mentioned earlier, that will be cleared out every run. Same thing with this PDF folder. This output folder, which you can see is currently empty, this is where our output updated workflow or workpaper will go into. And then these following XAML files, these are all the different workflows that are utilized within these states. You can think of these as sub-processes, and then this is like the overall process. Awesome. Okay, so let me go ahead and hide this. And let's go ahead and see, oh, really quick, let's just look at the variables so you can get an idea of the in-depthness that this application goes into. You can see we have, I don't know, about 15 variables here. Some of them are initialized with default values. Things like is system continue, that's just our simple error handling system in here, which helps us continue from state to state. And then some of these other ones, I won't go into depth, but basically these can be changed depending on the application or depending on the workflow or workpaper we're trying to use, but that's just what we have it set up currently. All right, so let's go ahead and actually demo this runtime live. You'll see that this takes about 2.5 minutes to generate the workpaper, which I think is a pretty good result. Obviously, room for improvement. To give you an idea, in real time, to create something that this dynamic that's updated might take an associate 30 minutes. So you can see there's a lot of potential there to save time on your work. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this. And I'm hoping that recording this and running this at the same time isn't too much strain on my CPU. I know UiPath doesn't like to work a lot with other applications at the same time, so fingers crossed. I can already tell it's running a little bit slower here. Awesome. All right, so it looks like the init completed. You can see that in the log message on the bottom left. Starting to retrieve data, you can see that it's opening this prior year workpaper, the 2022 file. It's currently doing some saving, some extracting, and then OCR scans. You can see it picked up the Word document. Those were the instructions that had some title changes, stuff like that. And then it's finished retrieving the data, and it's starting this API call, which is our UiPath web scraping. So if we look at that, you can see here it's logging to the OpenAI playground. It's loading a pre-trained data set here, and it's pasting in all of our OCR scan data in a structured format. And you can see here, here's the beauty of the GPT-4 algorithm. It's generating a CSV styled output. You can see separated by those little tildes, which will let us iterate through this and create the workflow. So our application's waiting here just to finish for the generation to stop. And then it's going to go ahead and copy all that text, which it should do any second now. which I think it did. If I go back here, so you can see it's starting to build the Excel file here in our log messages, and it's using that Excel file. So if we go over to Excel, you can see it's actually building this live, and then it's going to close this Excel file, save it, wait a few seconds, and then you'll see it's going to open up that same Excel file. There it is, and now it's going to do some formatting using keyboard shortcuts. So you can see here it's going through and it's sort of auto-adjusting some of the longer text, which it's trained to do, and then auto-format the row height. There again, there's a value. Looks pretty good. Let's go into the next one, where it's going to insert the current year 2023 image, which it previously OCR scanned in the workflow. Like there you go, it's typing in that full path to the image. You can see it's imaged by the PNG output. There it is. Now it's going to go to the next one. There you go. You can see here again, this needs to be formatted because it's too long. This is really demoing, I think, the strengths of UiPath and RPA automation. It's going to insert another image here after the annotations. This is the second image that it scanned, the actual application configuration. Now it's going to do some formatting on the A column. You can see it's moving the figure around. It's going to change the color. And it's done. Awesome. And if we look at our output here, final state reached, 3 minutes flat. Is able to complete that work paper. So let's go ahead and look at what it actually made here. If I refresh, you'll see there's some temporary images that will get deleted on the next iteration, same with the PDF, but we're interested in this output right here, this Excel file. So this is what it created for 2023, updated the control work paper for this password configuration. You can see it has a date included. That might need to be adjusted depending on when we actually finalize this work paper. You can see there's another updated date, so it's able to recognize that it needs to be updated to 2023. Conclusion, it's not programmed to, GPT algorithm's not programmed to record a conclusion because that's something we want us humans to go in and actually look at and make sure that it makes sense before we say the control's operating effectively or anything like that. You can see there's still room to improve the formatting here on like the testing matrix, but I left it as is just because I think that what I did was enough to demonstrate the potential here. But you can see, you can clearly see this full text here. It's formatted nice. You have your figures bolded in red. You have the image, the relevant image. And just to highlight here, you can see that the date changed here. This internal control analyst, before John Doe was internal control analyst 2, and he was recently promoted to control analyst 3, so the GPT accurately picked that up and updated it. As well as you can see it updated the password length requirements. So last year it was 12. This year you can see management changed it to 14 characters. Same with the reset cycles, now 3 months, which is right here in this paragraph right here. And you can see it noted that the evidence retained was satisfactory for the testing attribute number A. Going down, let's see here. So it looks like they updated the control owner to Jenny Soup and enterprise director. That looks good. Also picked up the date 7/1, which was in this image here, right? It's just showing when the password configuration is effective as of. And it looks like it noted that it met all the minimum requirements and the satisfactory for B, C, D, and E. Cool. So obviously there's a lot more formatting that can get put into this and upgrading and things like that. But just for the demonstration purposes for 675, I believe that this fully meets the criteria of the scope, right? And then just to highlight here, the last year work paper versus this year, we put them side by side. Let me pull up last year's. You can see that the GPT did pretty well in terms of the content, the wording, even the UiPath formatting is pretty on par. Like the only thing that's missing maybe is like a border outline here, some color up here to match this. But you can see, it kept everything pretty much in line with last year, which Sally, same as last year. That's like an accountant's favorite acronym. You can see, right? I looked at all these, and you can pause the video and look at how it's able to incorporate some of the changes here and annotate it accurately.